Hey everyone, my name is Rooster, and welcome back to Mechabellum. In today's video, I'm going to show you guys a replay of a game where I was trying out some old strategies and see how they work. This particular one, it's all about Sledgehammer carry. Now obviously I'm going to be going for a Sledgehammer pack here with Marksman, and I would say that that is probably one of the ideal packs that you can get. Either Sledge Marksman or something with chaff like Sledge Fang or Sledge Crawler, as this is not a very complicated strat. As you will see, it is mostly about building a lot of sledges early on and teching them when you have the money. The only thing you need to be a little bit wary about is, of course, a little bit of chaff goes a long way to protect your sledges, and a couple of anti-air units like Marksman also are very beneficial in the early game to deal with, let's say, stuff like Phoenixes. Now, the nice thing here is that I'm a cost control specialist, allowing me to go for another sledge here on round 1 and still be able to grab a crawler. My opponent is a Fire Badger specialist, and he starts with Void Eyes and Mustangs, adds 2 crawlers, and it looks like we are going to be dealing with a more aggressive push. I decided to kind of hedge on the left side here. Right side did have the wall, plus I think maybe a building behind. I'm not entirely sure anymore, but I decided to kind of gamble here on the left, and it does seem like I am correct on where my opponent was going to be. Now, as for the preferred tech bar, I have been running range, mech rage, armor-piercing bullets, and electromagnetic shot, the classic tech bar for sledge carry, where range and mech rage is going to be your bread and butter, kind of the first couple techs that you're usually going to go for. As you know, it gives your sledges a little bit more safety with the range. The mech rage adds a bit more chaff clearing ability as well as a little bit of DPS. And then you've got things like armor piercing to deal with the really tanky units, and EMP to kind of try and beat stuff that you normally might struggle against, like Scorpion. I'm not saying that, you know, you can beat Scorpion, but you know, if a tech is capable of doing it, then it's probably something like EMP to keep that range advantage that the Sledgehammers might have. Now, here in round number 2, we don't have anything too impressive. Only card variants, and I wasn't really looking for any of them. I do think the new improved Sabertooth is a very good card, although it wouldn't have been good in this scenario against nothing but small units. But that card is definitely worth checking out if, you know, the situation asks for it. And here on round number 2, because I'm cost control, I can go for 2 more sledges and immediately press Mech Rage. And as you can see, this strat really is all about focusing on the sledges. You don't have to do much else, and in fact, that's what I would recommend, right? Really try to get as many resources into the sledges early as you can. Of course, if you see that your sledgehammers are dying too much, or your opponent goes into heavy air, you're going to need to tech your marksman, stuff like that, or buy anti-air units, buy more chaff. But, you know, getting a good amount of sledgehammers in whenever you feel like you can is going to help a lot. So already here, making use of that cost control bonus resources, we have 5 sledgehammers with mech rage. My opponent goes for charge shots on the Void Eyes, and that's pretty much the round here. Just more chaff for my opponent, kind of trying to defend that right side. I'm calling a bluff here that I'm not going to get attacked. You know, I think that sometimes that's worth doing. If I do get attacked, I'll have to fix that next round, but otherwise I kind of get away with a pretty decent turn here already with the mech rage. As we can see though, I don't have a ton of chaff, and my sledgehammers are struggling somewhat against charge shot Void Eye, which is still very powerful. So seems like at best here we'll get kind of a tie. I do have some marksmen left. Maybe we can get rid of the remainder of the Void Eyes, but it's not going to be a very convincing round win. But that doesn't matter too much. The thing is that when you play these type of, you know, very single unit centric carries, you just want to get techs, and you want to especially start getting experience on those units so you can get some levels going. So even though I lost that round, my sledgehammer started getting a little bit of levels. Not a ton, because there's a lot of them, but every little bit helps, and hopefully it'll get me to some levels pretty soon. Now here on round number 2, or number 3 rather, we get the unit reinforcements. Double Wasp shows up, which is a little bit annoying. My opponent already has Mustang, so he's in a better spot than me in terms of being able to deal with this Wasp threat. And yeah, I didn't really want to go into the Mustang or the Wasp mirror because I felt like I was not going to get anywhere. So instead, I just sell whatever is most expensive. The Sabertooth in this case sells for 300 profit. I can immediately range my sledgehammers to give them a little bit of breathing room against the Void Eyes, which now also have range, and I grab some chaff. A triple chaff round, 2 fangs in the front here to kind of prevent early missiles as well, and instant lock-ons, and then a fang in the back to hopefully help out a little bit against the wasps, which I did expect my opponent to go for. In these type of defensive scenarios, you can often get away with fangs as your main way of dealing with wasps, as long as the wasps aren't like super high level and your opponent isn't committing text to them. If they do, you'll probably have to go for something like Mustang. But to be honest, this type of Sledgehammer board, it does go very well with Mustang, and it's likely a unit that you will end up needing in a lot of games. Just to be able to deal with air threats, because especially if you start winning, people tend to kind of, you know, default to more air-based comps to avoid the sledgehammers altogether. Now here we'll have to see how things go. I do put a missile on the right side. I thought maybe there would be a bit of an aggressive push, and this time around I didn't want to take the gamble. Sadly though, the wasp pack splits up and then splits up again, so I only end up killing 3 wasps with that. Not really worth it, but still not the worst result. It does look like I'm going to lose once again as the Void Eyes really start hitting their stride and kind of get their power spike super early on. But it's not a massive loss. And, you know, the only thing I really need, I feel, is some Sledgehammer levels. So as long as I can somehow, you know, keep surviving these rounds and kind of slowly build up my experience, I might be fine. Round number 4, nothing too interesting there. I mean, Barrier is very good, but I'm not planning to play any Giants. And so here we'll have to see how exactly we want to deal with everything. I decided to go for another Fang on the left because I think this was missileable, and I perhaps was getting insta-locked as well. And my opponent goes for range now on the Mustangs as his anti-air, but also kind of a way of helping to chaff clear against all of my fangs. And I'm just going to add more Sledgehammers. And you might think, wow, this is a very simplistic setup. But honestly, this kind of works the best from, you know, the couple of games that I've played with this. And I was testing this comp for, you know, about 2 days. And this is just the easiest thing that I've come up with that works really well. Just line up all the Sledgehammers and, yeah, try and make sure that together they can chaff clear. Because that's been a big problem, or like a big reason why this comp hasn't been popular, is it got nerfed pretty heavily. AP got changed, Mech Rage got nerfed and changed, and therefore it's a lot harder now to kind of let your Sledgehammers do everything, which is a good thing for the game. But yeah, it does mean that you're not going to see this as often, and if you do try it, you're going to have some growing pains, especially in the early game. I think experience also got hit once or twice for Sledgehammers, so this is why even on round 4 I still don't have any leveled Sledgehammers. Hopefully now I might have some. I have a single level, and perhaps now we'll be able to just start elite recruiting them. The good thing is, once again, I haven't lost too many resources, right? Or too many hit points. Speaking of resources, here we're deciding to spend them on the orbital bombardment. I mean, round number 5, it just feels like a good thing. My opponent is playing nothing but small units, so I feel like it is somewhat mandatory. My opponent also goes for it. It's not bad against these low-level sledges. And, well, hopefully we could just take down any shields that my opponent might put down, unless they don't decide to put down any shields, which I would be rather happy with. And now you can see I'm just going to try and put more chaff down, as I realize my opponent is only using Mustangs to chaff clear, and while Mustangs are pretty good against Fangs, they're not that good into crawlers, especially if there's no, you know, cunning round plus high explosive, like ultra chaff clear oriented Mustang tech bar. I do have attack 1 and defense 1, and I am deciding to go for temp range here. Opponent does go for double shield, but it seems like still we're managing to chaff clear kind of alright. The right side, still there are those wasps, but I don't think it's worth doing anything with them, as it takes a long time for half a wasp pack to take down a level 2 tower, and I felt like I should really try and focus on that left side of the field. Hopefully we can take down the shields. I don't mind losing the round here, but I do want to get rid of those barriers, because that's a pretty big investment. I went for it as well, and, well, taking that down is just, you know, 200 resources gone for my opponent. It looks like we may even end up winning here. The wasps eventually take down the tower, but I still have a marksman left, plus some sledgehammers. And now all of a sudden, if we look at those sledgehammers, almost all of them are ready to level. It took a while, but they all, you know, accrued experience over the past 5 rounds or so. And Now, all of them get over that threshold, and suddenly I go from having nothing but level 1 marksman to having a whole bunch of level 2 sledgehammers. I think I said marksman, I meant a whole bunch of level 2 sledgehammers, of course. And round number 6, immediately, we have unit reinforcements once again. Wraith here available, I decided to pick that up. I'm not too afraid of the Overlord, because I do have some marksmen on the field. I'm not going to do anything with them right now. If my opponent decides to go for Overlord, then I'll just, grab the aerial specialization and counter accordingly. For the time being, I really want to make sure I can get all of the Sledgehammer levels. I mean, it doubles their attack, it doubles their hit points. It's just a massive buff. And for something that we have this many deployments of and 2 techs on, it's really important to take those levels. I'm going to go for 2 Wraith in the back. The nice thing about this is that it, is a counter to the Wasps that are currently unteched, so it helps me out. And, the Sledgehammers can struggle to chaff clear after the Mech Rage nerfs, so adding some, potential additional chaff clear in the long term is not a bad idea. I'm gonna go for more Sledgehammers once again, just kind of extend the line here, make sure that, if my opponent decides to aggress on the right side, I at least start building a little bit of a defense over there. And it looks like they also went for Wraith with Degeneration Beam on the line, which I don't really approve of. It's quite good, but when I already have marksmen this far up, or rather, well, in the correct positions, if I just press aerial specialization, I don't think those Wraith are going to survive for a very long time, and with how far up they are, it's going to be near impossible to defend them from going down instantly. This round, though, the Degen Beam does do a really good job of debuffing most of my sledges for a long time, and that helps out all of the opponent's Void Eyes. Perhaps will result in a loss. The right side does collapse, my Wraith is unable to do too much. It looks like most of my Sledgehammers have gone down at this point, but it's not a massive loss again. I mean, my opponent here, luckily for me, decides to also play a lot of small units, and, even if they end up winning the round, I only take a couple hundred in terms of damage. So we do end up losing that, but it's an easily fixable problem. Lightning Storm shows up, both of us again pick it. At this stage of the game, you see a spell, you pick a spell. That's kind of how the game goes. AA on the marksman, of course, to be able to deal with the enemy Wraith. And now I'm probably just looking to extend the line of Sledgehammers even further. Perhaps something like double Sledgehammer plus a marksman on the right side would do the trick. Although I say that, I am kind of broke at this point. From what I can see, I am going to start loaning. It's round 7, temp range, kind of important. And it looks like it's just going to be a Sledgehammer plus a marksman. Now, what I could do is sell one of my Wraith, retrieve the 300, and then use that money to buy another level 2 Sledgehammer. I think that would be alright. Looks like that is what I'm going to go for, at least at the sell. But I end up going for armor-piercing bullets instead, to hopefully be able to one-shot the enemy Void Eyes. Now, armor-piercing bullets gives a lot of bonus attack on Sledgehammers. It also increases your attack interval by 30%, so you really need Mech Rage, and even then your chaff clear becomes kind of bad, which is the big downside. But you get 250% attack, and that's enough to take down, even most giants, especially level 1 giants will just completely melt if they get hit by level 2 AP sledges. Marksman doing a great job here, kind of instantly punishing that forward positioning that my opponent went for. And yeah, this is what Sledgehammer carry is kind of known for, that if your opponent doesn't have the perfect setup against it and lets it kind of grow out of control for a little too long, suddenly your Sledgehammers just start winning the ground instantly. All of them survive and you deal 2,000 damage to your opponent. And that's exactly what happened there. Suddenly we turned the table and we managed to get a really, really convincing round on the board. Round number 8, third pack of unit reinforcement shows up. It's the first round it can show. My opponent decides to go for a Vulcan as they feel like their chaff clear is perhaps not good enough to deal with all of these crawlers, which I think is a pretty sensible thing to do. Now, what they could go for as well is perhaps a bigger attack here on the right side. I have a lot of Sledgehammers, but, something like a level 2 Titan with the resources from the unit drop could be problematic for me. I'm going to go for the Vulcan myself. I haven't used oil yet. My opponent has the same idea in mind, so I could go for a little bit of an oil and fire play to try and get rid of as much chaff as I can. There's quite a few packs here kind of in the middle, and hopefully that allows me to lock onto the enemy units even faster. We do have suppression shot on the enemy Void Eyes, which would annoy the Sledgehammer somewhat, but the good thing is that Sledgehammers are a bigger pack of units than Void Eyes are, so not all my Sledgehammers should get hit and lose their range, and hopefully I can just overwhelm in terms of numbers as I add 2 more blue Sledgehammer packs here on the right. Again, lone temp range kind of important. I didn't feel like temp speed was that mandatory here since we are the ones kind of being aggressed, being pushed into. And yeah, I mean, let's see how this goes. The Vulcan is in the middle. I try to kind of extend the fire over towards the left, hoping that the Vulcan might be able to help out on this side of the field. It only needs to hit, you know, this little edge, and then the fire will do all the work on the left side. And let's see. The fire is doing a decent job, but the enemy Vulcans with range are chaff clearing right now. And I'm a little bit concerned about this left side as all of those Void Eyes are starting to take over somewhat. Thankfully for me, the right side now starts to win. And hopefully I'll be able to overwhelm still. The right side debuff would be very helpful, but I lose my left side tower, and now suddenly those Void Eyes are starting to take over. I don't have much left, but I do have this one Wraith. Sadly though, there are 2 Mustangs on the field still for my opponent, so what could have been a default win through an air unit will not end up being that, but still a good amount of, you know, hit point saving at the end there, as I do take down a fair bit of Void Eyes. Now we enter round number 9 with a couple of decent items here. Absorption module that gets picked up for my opponents could be good on their level 2 Vulcan. Improved firepower control system, not bad either. For me, items don't make too much sense. It's not worth buffing the attack even further because it's all additive in terms of bonuses. So, you know, adding 70% or whatever it is, 65% to armor-piercing bullets is just going to go from 250% to 315, which is not that big of a difference. So I'd rather just skip, use the money, and invest all of that back into my Sledgehammers. We take the levels wherever we can. This is kind of a non-negotiable in my opinion, because the Sledgehammers are our entire comp. My opponent here goes for more Wasps with shield, and I felt like my main problem was, you know, chaff clearing in this case. So I could either go for more Wraith, which, you know, wouldn't be the worst, or I can go for something like Mustangs with range, and I end up going for the Wraith with armor from the looks of things, as my opponent only has Mustangs right now to deal with anti-air, and it's also part of his chaff clear. You know, yes, he has added Vulcans, but the Mustangs are doing a good job so far too. If I can make sure that they get locked onto these level 2 armored Wraith, I should be just fine. And at this stage of the game, considering I already had a level 2 Wraith, I can buy 3 more with the loan, and I mean, that should be a little bit of a problem for my opponent. The good thing too is that the addition of the Wraith here perfectly counters the enemy Wasp play. They went for shielded Wasps to try and really bother my marksman, but it's not going to work. And you can see already that a lot of these Mustangs now are locked onto the Wraith, unable to do anything, which leaves everything up to all of these Void Eyes and the enemy Vulcans. Granted, the Vulcan does have the absorption module, but I have AP sledges, so I should be able to deal a good amount of damage. And this could even be game. I have triple blue Wraith still alive, a bunch of Sledgehammers. I mean, it's hard to see sometimes, but there's actually quite a few of them alive, and indeed, that will be enough to beat my opponent on round 9. A very nice line of Sledgehammers here. It looks quite comical, but it's stronger than you might think. I don't think this is a, you know, top tier comp by any stretch of the imagination. If I were to play this into, you know, one of the very top guys, I would likely end up losing more often than not. But with that being said, you know, up until 1500 MMR, maybe even 1600 MMR, I think you can have great success with this comp and catch people off guard. It's relatively straightforward to set up. You don't need a lot, right? Sledgehammers, chaff, and press Sledgehammer text. You'll be good. Again, if your opponent goes heavily into air, you might have to add something like Mustangs, which will help out with chaff gear as well, so it's not too bad. And getting a couple of marksmen on the board, you know, 2 to begin with, is gonna help you out if your opponent goes into things like Raiden or Overlord. But, you know, AA marksman is quite capable into that, so I don't think you should have too many problems. What should my opponent have done here? They were kind of lacking chaff clear right for most of the game. Mustang is not the best. Void Eyes aren't terrible, but the one downside of playing a board of nothing but small units is that you don't end up dealing a ton of damage. Now, they did end up winning round 8, but a play that you could have gone for as well is, you know, trying to attack this right side of the board. You might say, oh, a Scorpion got offered there. What about that? You could, but I have tried it in replay, and it's not that convincing anymore at this stage. The Sledgehammers are, well, really numerous. And if I end up clicking EMP next round, that might be a bit of a problem. I think Scorpion is great into this comp, but more so if you just end up buying it really early, right? So if you see your opponent do this, try to get into Scorpion instantly and then grab the levels where possible. The Sledgehammers will struggle quite a bit to take them down efficiently. I think I took over the wrong person, so let's actually go back to watch the replay and take over as my opponent, as I wanted to try perhaps something like a Titan play on the left. Now, in this scenario, the Phoenix is worth 500, it sells for 450 profit. The Scorpion is worth 600, so it sells for 500 profit, which would be the most. If we do that, we have 2100 resources in the bank. What I could do here is grab a Crawler and then maybe a Mountain on this side of the board. I'm going to put a Crawler here to kind of protect my Mountain from being insta-locked, and I'm going to go for a Beacon as well to try and move into this tower. We could go for double defense enhancement as well, just to kind of amp the beefiness of all of my units. I'm generally not a fan of double attack here. I mean, it will be good eventually, but my Void Eyes already have charge shot, and again, right, you're adding additive stats to something that already has plus 175%, so it's a little bit less valuable than something like the double defense enhancement on all of the units. Let's see how this goes. Mountain is also quite good into Sledgehammers. I mean, most Titans are relatively good, at least the 2 ground-based ones. I wouldn't consider Abyss to be very good into this, but Mountain at the very least should not be that bad. And let's see if it can lock onto the tower and grab a debuff. Here it goes, moves in, gets a tower debuff, which will help tremendously. As the Mountain waltzes over, we should be able to win this. We get another tower debuff there, the Void Eyes collapse. We do get a victory, which is a little bit more convincing than the victory that my opponent got this round, which I think was only like 500 or 600 damage. So you can deal quite a bit, and now I would have to, you know, somehow deal with this Mountain. I don't think it was enough to end the game, but it is a way to try and counter this, you know, if you find yourself struggling a little bit. Yeah, indeed. I would have been still relatively healthy at around 1400 hit points, but it might have made things a little bit more easy, because then I have to actually start investing into something that can deal with that Mountain. Like a melting point, right? It's not like I have nothing to add, but it kind of puts the onus back on me. Anyway, if you enjoyed this video, please leave a thumbs up. Let me down in the comments below what you thought about it. Is Sledgehammer Carry something that you used to play? Something that you have tried recently? Do you like it or hate it? Let me know. If you want to stay up to date with my latest content, please consider subscribing. And if you want to see me play live, check me out on Twitch. With that being said, take care, guys, and see you in the next video. Bye-bye.